Chapter 12. Bedtime. I used to go to church on Earth, and as inviting as the people there were, after the evening service they would always start turning out lights to encourage people to move on. I mention this because I suspected that one was doing the same thing. The lights were shutting down. I didn't see anyone flicking light switches. He must have been doing it from the control room, sending us to bed against our will. I wasn't going to bed though. We didn't know enough about one. He had just appeared and taken control of our lives. I needed to know what he was about. "So what now? It's bedtime?" Coiler said, responding to one's order that we should go to our quarters. I looked at my watch. "It is 10 o'clock Earth I began, but trailed off as I started thinking about home. "That's too early for me," Coiler said. "We've had a busy day," Sana replied. "Maybe it's not such a bad idea to get an early night." We all shuffled out in groups and headed for our rooms. When I got back to my room, and after I had said goodnight to some of the others, I dove for my suitcases. I changed into some dry, warm clothes, jeans and jumper, and then started looking for a torch. After a few minutes of frantic searching, I realised I must have forgotten to pack it. Then I remembered that I had my phone. It was useless now for communicating, what with the cell towers and stations gone with the Earth, but it did have a light. It still had a little power. I also had my charger, but there were no power sockets in my room. I fiddled with the phone for a moment, checking the brightness. The glow from the screen was strong, but it wasn't a directed beam. I tried to use the torch feature, but it no longer worked. The dim light from the screen was all I had. It would have to do, I thought to myself. I then saw a notice on my phone's screen. It was a text message. The sender was my mum. However, the message was a joint message between her, my dad, and my brother Jack. I stared at the phone, frozen and sad. This was the last message I would ever see from them. It felt like opening the message would mean that they were definitely gone. I was overwhelmed with loneliness. My hand shook. Finally, I opened the message. The first bubble read, "Never forget that we love you. We are so proud of you, and we know you will do incredible things on your mission, Callum. Love, Mum." The second bubble read, "Son, you're a strong young man ready for the journey ahead of you. Don't forget yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Live your life. Don't waste it. Love, Dad." And a third bubble. "Hi, Callum. Jack." I read the words over and over and they cut to my heart. My mind kept telling me to delete it, to let go of them, but I couldn't. Instead, I typed a response to their text. "Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad. Hi, Jack. I love you. Sorry I couldn't take you with me. I will live my life and never forget you. I'm so lonely, though, and all I think about is that you're no longer here. I think I'll feel alone forever. Love, Callum. XXX. Smiley face." I pressed send. I watched the status bar move from left to right as it processed the message. My eyes wandered to the signal strength symbol. It was empty. I looked back at the processing message. Then the notification appeared. Message not sent. I collapsed onto the carpet. They were gone. I was all alone. I didn't want to move. I didn't want anything now. Tears ran down my cheeks. All I could do was cry. I woke up on the floor about an hour later. My phone was still in my hand on standby. I closed the text message app. I didn't want to read those words again. I wiped my face and sniffed. I decided to take my mind off my sadness by leaving my room. Maybe snooping for information on one would distract me. The corridors of the ship were quiet and pitch black, just like one said. It was cold, like the middle of an autumn night. I switched on the phone to dimly light my way. There was no light at either end of the corridor. One was right, the whole ship was completely dark. I wouldn't admit it to anyone else, but the total darkness freaked me out. "You had the same idea," someone said behind me. I yelped and spun on the spot. I raised the phone and lit up Jillian's face. "Thanks for almost giving me a heart attack," I said. "I suppose I shouldn't have scared you like that," she replied, as she fought off a smile. "What are you doing out here?" I asked. "Same as you, probably," Jillian answered. "I'm going to the bridge to check the computer for any record of one," I said. "Oh, then we didn't have the same idea," she replied. "What was yours?" I asked. Jolene took out a torch and shone it down the corridor. I put my phone away. It was useless now. She led me to the giant room that we had teleported into. We stood at the panoramic window. It was the same window through which I saw Earth end. The stars were the brightest they had ever been, and there were more in this field of vision than I had ever seen from Earth. Without any light pollution, they shone brightly in the darkness of space. Jolene pressed her face against the window. "The wormhole we're heading for is on the very edge of the solar system," she said. "Most of our journey will be through empty space. A view this spectacular must be soaked up." And as she looked around, her forehead squeaked against the glass. "I think we'll see lots of stars on the journey," I replied. "No, not the stars, Callum. Look what's coming up," she said. I stepped closer to the window. When I stood next to her, I saw what she meant. Mars. I remembered that I had seen it on a display in the control center. Now we had nearly reached it. I stared at the red planet in awe, and I was suddenly thankful that Jolene had surprised me and led me here. This was the most amazing thing I had ever seen in my life. I was staring at a famous world, a world that mankind had dreamed about for years, a world of wonder, of made-up tales of little green men. I thought of the probes and the Mars landings in the 2020s. I felt almost near enough to touch their remains. "Did you ever think that you would see something like this?" Jolene asked, smiling wide. "No," I replied, "and it's a shame no one else is going to see this. You know, despite everything that has happened today, this view dulls the pain a little," Jolene said. I could have stared at the view forever. "It does help," I replied, "if only a little." "A little will do," Jolene agreed. We both stepped back from the window. For a moment I thought we might hug, but then we went back to looking at Mars. "Do you think they put this window here so we would have a view?" Jolene asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. I'm glad they did, though," I said. "Hey, how did you know that we were going to pass Mars anyway?" "I worked it out from the video Dr. Ghost showed us," she said. "And you didn't tell anyone else?" Jolene looked a little guilty. "I thought about it," she said, "but there was no one I really wanted to share this with." Though I could have been offended, I knew exactly what she meant. I was going to dig up information on one, and I didn't tell anybody else either. I felt alone, and for some reason I wanted to be alone too. "I left my mum and sisters behind," Jolene suddenly blurted out. I didn't know what to say in response. I experienced roughly the same thing, but I couldn't even comfort myself, so how was I going to try and do the same to her? Still, talking might help. "Parents and a brother for me," I said. We were still staring at Mars. "I keep thinking how they must have died," she said, "wondering if it was painful, or they just suddenly stopped being alive. They must have been so scared." I knew where she was going with this, and I didn't want to think about it myself. I turned to face her. "Don't think like that," I said. A single tear ran down Jolene's cheek. "We were chosen to be here, and we can't change that," I added. She cried some more. Then I started to cry too. I couldn't stop. I took up my phone and showed her the last messages from my parents and Jack. She read the words. And I said something I didn't really mean. I can't do anything about what I lost, and dwelling on it only makes me depressed and empty. It's up to you what you do next. Me, I'm moving on. I smiled at Jolene, willing her to take comfort in what I had just said. She didn't say anything. She just cried. It took every bit of strength I had not to keep crying with her. I couldn't do this. Not now. Not again. "Let me know if we pass by other planets. I want to see them too," I said to change the subject. "I will," she said, sniffling. "Maybe we could tell the others." "Yeah, but Mars is just ours," I said. I took one last look at the planet. Mars was shrinking now, as we moved past it. Soon it would be nothing but a speck, almost erased from our view. I hoped the pain I felt would do the same. Thank you for listening to this chapter from Stolen Futures. Please like or comment on this video, and subscribe to The Eighth Plot so you don't miss out on the next installment of this book. Goodbye.